Hey, what's up, you guys? So my last video was about how I like to use lo-fi as a insert um, in Pro Tools to enhance the snare, the top snare when I don't have a bottom snare. So just a quick little refresher. Basically, as an insert in Pro Tools, you use it in serial, meaning one after another. So in these two cases, these two top snares, it's lo-fi and then an EQ. Right, and that's cool and all, but I find that it leads it's a lot to be desired if you really want to like mess with things. I find sometimes when you do something like this as an insert, sometimes you change the sound too much and you don't really have control over if you want more of the dry original sound and the uncompressed or unchanged sound blended in. So what I like to do when I have to do drastic changes is I like to actually use it in parallel. As you can see here, I have two parallel sends going to the same send and they're both in pre-fader. It feeds into this snare parallel right here. And basically what I'm doing is I actually am doing different EQs than I did with the original lo-fi EQs. So if you check these out right now, here's the snare top 1 EQ with the lo-fi, and then here's the EQ that I have since it's just the snare top. It's drastically different, right? So then if I do the same thing with this one, this is the second snare top with the lo-fi, and this is the snare top without it. So with is right here on the left and without it is on the right. This one's a little bit more similar to what was there before, but still a drastic change. So basically the whole point of this is that way I can get my snare top tones and I can have my snare bottom tone. So as we talked about in my last video, lo-fi is great because it's a noise section. Really adds a lot of white noise and it's great for adding that faux snare bottom part of the sound. So if we listen to this right now without any processing, just the parallels feeding both into a unity, this is what we're getting. So yeah, that's literally just a sum of both of these mono parallel snares going into this one. So now if we put on lo-fi, you'll see that I added a little bit of distortion to kind of compress it and kind of give it some, like energy and some sustain, a little bit of saturation to kind of like tame out some of the harshness and a lot of noise. So it's a lot of white noise is going to come in. So let's take a listen. So the cool part about using noise in lo-fi is that the snare bottom part, the actual snare part, that little metal chain, sounds a lot like that. So basically what I did was I just turned this up and I want this to basically be a pretend bottom snare mic. So what I'm doing is I'm going to EQ this to make it sound kind of thinner, kind of just like bottom snare-esque. And then I'm basically doing a combination of EQing and then compression. And the compression is really just to get rid of some of that peaking attack and just kind of give it more of a sustained. It's really subtle. So we'll take a listen right now and I'll bring these settings in. So we'll start off with nothing. So that's pretty simple, It sounds kind of bad, if you listen to it out of context. But the cool part is that now we have the freedom to actually change and EQ both these snares and make them sound how we want them to sound, and then we can have it in the entire drum set up. So here's the snares without any EQ and without the parallel. So yeah, it's basically just like adding a third snare mic. That's the way I like to think of it. So if we listen to the entire drum set in the context, um, we'll start off with the snare parallel just all the way floor down, and then I'll slowly bring it up and you can see what it does. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Basically, the whole idea and concept of something in parallel is you're sending a duplicate alongside the original signal. So you have a track who basically has a copy of both of these snares combined into one. So that way I can do any processing, any like just weird effects and stuff that I want to do to it, and I can blend it in and make it sound like a whole new sound. And normally this is done a lot with, with compression. You'll really compress something to death. You'll just squeeze the life out of it because you like the tone or you like the consistent volume that you're getting out of it, and you blend it in with the original. But in this concept, what I'm more doing is I'm more transforming the sound. I'm turning these two snare top mics into one snare bottom mic, and then I'm blending it in like it's a whole different mic, like this was the snare mic for the bottom. So all I'm basically doing is you're blending it in. It's the same thing as using the faders. So here we go again. I'll just mute this, then I'll bring it back in. So the really cool thing about this way you can actually still have the original tone, and you can EQ them and compress them however you like, and you have something else that you can actually add as a color. So the original setup that I did in the first video, it would be like this. And then with the parallel instead and the lo-fi is deactivated, it would be like this. It's a similar tone. You get a little bit of a different tone, but I prefer this way over using it as an insert, because if I'm making a fake snare drum mic like I am here, I can literally just use Lo-Fi's noise or any other white noise generator. You can easily just send this out and sidechain a gate to it and have like Pro Tools' noise generator plugin right here, and just have it for pink or white noise, and you can EQ the noise, and you can have the gate kind of cutting it in and out only when it needs to be. But I prefer this method because I like the way that Lo-Fi works. I think Lo-Fi works very well for it. It's a great easier alternative. You don't have to worry about sidechaining and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just a quick tip. Basically all I did is I sent everything to Lo-Fi, and then I slowly brought in an EQ and tuned in what type of sound I wanted, and then I did a little bit of compression. And that's it. I don't even know how much gain reduction I'm doing. I think I'm barely doing any. We'll take a quick look. So I think it's pretty cool. I mean, if you notice when I take the compressor in and out, I'm kind of changing the tone a little bit, not really doing much gain reduction. It looks like it's hitting 1, maybe 2 at the max. But this compressor is also really cool. I really love this MIC-DSP, the 6030 Ultimate Compressor. This is the British, so Neve compressor emulation on this. But I think it just sounds really smooth and clean, so I like to use it a lot. So that about wraps it up. I mean, today it's a pretty quick video, pretty simple. This is just more of an expansion on the last video. This is just talking about using Lo-Fi in parallel instead of in serial, which would be using it as a plugin like I did in the first video. I personally prefer, again, I like using it in parallel a lot better. You can create your own sound. So I hope this helped. Hope this gave you some ideas, answered some questions that might not have been answered in the last video. And yeah, that's about it.